The stars had always been kind to humanity. For 63 years, humans had traveled among them, making friends with strange beings from distant worlds. They had joined the Galactic Council as junior members, eager to learn and grow. They served as peacekeepers when conflicts arose. They traded goods across 17 star systems. They believed they had found their place in the universe. Admiral Daniel Harper remembered those hopeful days as he stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Relentless. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and tired eyes. His gray uniform was pressed and clean, as it always was. The ship hummed quietly around him as crew members worked at their stations. The communication screen flickered to life. The face that appeared was not human. High Chancellor Vorthan of the Kelith Dominion had pale blue skin stretched tight over a skull that was longer than any human head. His eyes were large and yellow, without any warmth in them. He spoke in a voice that sounded like stones grinding together. "The Galactic Council has made its decision," Vorthan said. "Earth is now under quarantine. All human colonies will be surrendered to Council control. Your fleet will stand down immediately. You will accept protective custody for the safety of all species." Daniel felt his hands tighten into fists at his sides. He forced himself to remain calm. "On what grounds?" he asked. "Humanity has been developing biological weapons in secret," Vorthan replied. "This is a threat to galactic peace. The Council has voted. 37 species stand with us. You have no choice." The screen went dark. Daniel stood in silence for a long moment. He knew the accusation was a lie. There were no biological weapons. There had never been any. But the truth did not matter to creatures who had already decided to fear humanity. Commander Lisa Morgan stepped up beside him. She was younger than Daniel, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She had served with him for 15 years. "They're lying," she said quietly. "They know they're lying." "Yes," Daniel agreed. "But 37 species believe them, or pretend to believe them." Through the viewport, they could see the Council Armada arriving. Ships of every shape and size dropped out of faster-than-light travel, surrounding Earth's home system like wolves circling a wounded animal. Daniel counted hundreds of vessels. Thousands, perhaps. Species that humanity had called friends now pointed their weapons at human ships and human worlds. The betrayal was complete. On Earth, Secretary General Nathan Price addressed the population from the old United Nations building in Geneva. He was a small man with white hair and a gentle face that looked older than his years. His voice shook slightly as he spoke, but his words were clear. "We will not resist," he said. "We will comply with the Council's demands. We will survive this. I ask all of you to remain calm. Do not give them any reason to harm our people." Some called him a coward. Others called him wise. Daniel Harper called him a survivor. There was no shame in bending when the wind was too strong. The shame would come only if they forgot how to stand again. The disarmament began within hours. Council troops boarded human warships and stripped them of weapons. They took the engines and the navigation systems. They left only empty shells floating in the dark. Human crews were removed and transported to holding facilities on the surface. Daniel surrendered his ship without a fight. He watched as alien soldiers walked through the corridors he had commanded for 20 years. They touched nothing with respect. They handled everything like it was garbage. One of them laughed at a photograph on his desk, a picture of his daughter who had died in a shuttle accident years ago. He said nothing. He remembered everything. The colonies were evacuated next. Millions of humans were loaded onto transport ships and taken to designated sanctuary zones on Earth and 3 small moons. The homes they had built over decades were left behind. Gardens, schools, hospitals, all abandoned. Some families had lived on colony worlds for 3 generations. Now they were refugees in their own solar system. Dr. Patricia Vance was among the first to be detained. She was Earth's leading expert on alien biology, a brilliant woman with kind eyes and a quick laugh. Council soldiers came for her in the middle of the night. They dragged her from her laboratory without explanation. Her crime, they would later say, was knowing too much about the elder races. She vanished into a Keleth prison station along with thousands of other scientists, artists, writers, and leaders. Anyone who might inspire humanity was taken away. The council wanted sheep, not shepherds. Children were separated from their families for what the council called educational realignment. They would be taught proper respect for the elder races. They would learn their place in the galactic order. Parents who protested were beaten. Those who resisted were shot. Lisa Morgan watched as a young mother was torn away from her crying son in one of the processing centers. The boy was maybe 5 years old. He screamed for his mother until a council guard struck him across the face. Then he went silent, his small body shaking with sobs he was too frightened to voice. Lisa turned away. She found Daniel standing alone in a corner, his face empty of expression. "How do we survive this?" she asked. "We remember," he said quietly. "We remember every face, every name, every wrong done to our people. And we wait. Wait for what?" Daniel looked at her with eyes that held no defeat, only cold patience. "For them to forget that we remember." The occupation settled over humanity like a heavy blanket. Council enforcers patrolled the streets of every city. Surveillance drones filled the skies. Humans learned to walk with their heads down and their voices low. They learned to be invisible. High Chancellor Vorthen declared victory. He told the council that the human threat had been contained. In a generation, perhaps two, humanity would be fully integrated into galactic society as a servant class. They would be grateful for council protection. They would forget they had ever been anything else. He did not understand humans. None of them did. In the dark, in the silence, in the spaces between heartbeats, humanity began to plan. Not with weapons or speeches or grand declarations. They planned with patience. They planned with memory. They planted seeds in cold ground and waited for spring. The council called it peace. They called it order. They called it the natural way of things. Humanity called it something else. They called it the beginning. 5 years passed under the council's shadow. Earth became a gray place where laughter was rare and hope was dangerous. People woke each morning to the sight of alien patrol ships crossing the sky. They went to sleep each night listening to announcements about new rules, new restrictions, new punishments for those who disobeyed. The great cities that humanity had built were still standing, but they felt empty now. Shops closed. Theaters went dark. Parks grew wild because no one had the heart to tend them. Children grew up learning to fear the sound of heavy boots on pavement. Council enforcers walked the streets in groups of 4, their weapons always visible. They spoke to humans only to give orders. They looked at humans only to find fault. A wrong look, a careless word, a moment of hesitation could mean arrest. Resistance cells that tried to organize were hunted down and destroyed. Their members were executed in public squares, while crowds were forced to watch. The message was clear. Obedience meant survival. Anything else meant death. Captain Kevin Shaw had been a decorated officer before the occupation. He had commanded a cruiser called the Swift Wind and led his crew through a dozen dangerous missions. Now he wore the gray coveralls of a maintenance worker on a Keleth supply station far from Earth. He cleaned floors and fixed broken pipes. He kept his eyes down and his mouth shut. The Keleth barely noticed him. To them, he was just another human worker, useful for simple tasks, but not worth attention. They never saw him watching. They never noticed him memorizing patrol schedules, security codes, and supply routes. They never imagined that the quiet man with the mop was building a map of their weaknesses in his mind. Kevin was not alone. Thousands of former military personnel had done the same thing. They had scattered across council space, taking jobs that made them invisible. Some worked in shipyards. Others served in alien households. A few had even found positions in government, buildings where sensitive information flowed freely. They communicated through methods so old and simple that the Council's advanced technology could not detect them. Messages hidden in shipments of food. Codes buried in ordinary conversations. Information passed hand to hand, person to person, across the vast distances of space on Earth. RED General Harold Mitchell lived quietly on a ranch in Montana. The land had been in his family for 200 years. The council had left him alone because he seemed like exactly what they wanted. A broken old soldier who had given up. His ranch became a meeting place for former officers who came to fish in the cold mountain streams. Council monitors recorded their conversations and found nothing suspicious. Old men talking about old times. Complaints about weather and health and the cost of supplies. Nothing dangerous. The monitors did not know that every fishing trip involved encrypted data transfers hidden in the rhythms of casual speech. They did not understand that the old men, with their fishing poles, were coordinating the most ambitious military operation in human history. Young engineer Christina Wells worked at a council shipyard on the colony world of New Brisbane. She had been just 19 when the occupation began, too young to have served in the military, too smart to be ignored. The council assigned her to a team that maintained their warships because humans were good at detail work and asking questions was not allowed. Christina asked no questions. She simply watched and learned. She documented every weakness in council ship designs, every flaw in their power systems, every gap in their security protocols. Her reports traveled through the underground network to engineers on Earth, who studied them with hungry eyes. Dr. Benjamin Cross had escaped the initial roundup of scientists by faking his own death. It was not difficult. The council was killing so many people that one more body in the rubble meant nothing. He found his way to the abandoned tunnels beneath old Chicago, a maze of passages that had been forgotten for centuries. There, in the darkness, he built a laboratory. Other scientists joined him one by one, smuggled out of detention facilities or rescued from execution. They worked with salvaged equipment and stolen supplies. They slept on concrete floors and ate whatever food the resistance could provide. Their task was simple to describe and almost impossible to achieve. They had to develop weapons that could defeat the Council's technology. They had to do it in secret with limited resources, while hiding from an enemy that controlled the entire galaxy. Benjamin never doubted they would succeed. Humans are creative, he told his team. We solve problems. It's what we do. The Council has been using the same technology for 10,000 years because it works. They stopped innovating because they stopped needing to. We need to, so we will. 5 years of work in those dark tunnels produced breakthroughs that the Council believed were impossible. New energy weapons that could penetrate their shields. Stealth systems that could hide entire ships from their sensors. Engine designs that could outrun anything they had. Above ground, the Council saw only what they expected to see. Human productivity was declining. Birth rates were falling. Cultural identity was fading. Their reports showed a species slowly dying, not from violence but from despair. High Chancellor Vorthen read these reports with satisfaction. In 50 years, he told the Council, humanity will be just another servant race. They will be grateful for our protection. They will worship us as the elder races they are meant to serve. He did not understand that humans had learned patience from watching their captors. The elder races thought in centuries. They planned for generations. They believed that slow and steady pressure would eventually crush any spirit. Humans could be patient too. They could wait and watch and remember. They could pretend to be broken while their hearts burned with cold fire. Lisa Morgan, now working as a translator for a minor council official, received a message one winter evening. It was hidden in a shipment of vegetables from a farm in New Zealand. The message contained only 2 words, "Almost ready." She burned the paper and scattered the ashes. That night, for the first time in 5 years, she allowed herself to smile. Across the galaxy, in hidden places and forgotten corners, humanity held its breath. The ember that had survived the occupation was about to become a flame. The silence was about to end. And when it ended, the galaxy would learn what happened when you betrayed those who never forgot. The signal came at midnight on March 15th, 2352. It was a date chosen with purpose. Long ago, on old Earth, it had been the day when a great leader was betrayed by those he trusted. Humanity had not forgotten. They never forgot. A small relay station on the dark side of Luna hummed to life. The machine had waited there for 3 years, hidden in the shadow of a crater where no council satellite ever looked. Its creators had built it from stolen parts and forbidden technology. Now it woke and began its work. The signal bounced through 17 hidden transmitters scattered across human space. It traveled through the underground networks that the council believed they had destroyed. It reached every person with human blood in their veins. From the workers in Kellis factories to the prisoners in forgotten cells to the children who had grown up knowing nothing but occupation. In a bunker beneath the Appalachian Mountains, Admiral Daniel Harper stood before a single camera. The bunker was cold and dim, lit only by emergency lights. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. The air smelled of damp stone and old machinery. He was older now. His hair had gone gray, and his face was lined with 5 years of hidden struggle. A limp slowed his walk, a gift from council interrogators who had tried to break him years ago. They had failed, though they never knew it. Behind him stood the leaders of the resistance. Lisa Morgan was there, her eyes bright with something that might have been tears or might have been fire. Kevin Shaw had returned from the Kellis station, his maintenance coveralls replaced by the uniform he had never truly stopped wearing. Christina Wells stood beside engineers who had turned her reports into weapons. Dr. Benjamin Cross was present, pale from years underground but standing tall. There were dozens more. Men and women who had kept faith through the long darkness. Soldiers who had pretended to be broken. Scientists who had worked in secret. Ordinary people who had passed messages and hidden supplies and never stopped believing. Daniel looked into the camera. He thought about the speech he could give. He could talk about justice and freedom and the future they would build. He could explain the plan that had taken 5 years to create. He could offer hope and comfort and promises of victory. But humanity did not need words. They had lived the words for 5 years. They had breathed them and bled for them and held them close in the darkest hours. They needed only one thing. One word. Daniel took a breath. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. It carried the weight of every wrong done to his people, every child taken, every life destroyed. Remember, the signal ended. The screen went dark. But across the galaxy, humanity heard. They remembered the day the Council Armada surrounded Earth. They remembered the lies about biological weapons that everyone knew were false. They remembered the disarmament and the evacuations and the separation of families. They remembered the executions and the prisons and the surveillance drones that watched their every move. They remembered who they had been before the betrayal. Scientists and artists and soldiers and dreamers. People who looked at the stars and saw possibility instead of fear. People who believed that tomorrow could be better than today. And they remembered what they had been building in the silence. Within 6 hours, every council enforcement station in human space went dark. The change happened so smoothly that the council did not understand what was happening at first. One moment, their enforcers were patrolling the streets. The next moment they were gone, taken by people they had dismissed as harmless servants. The humans who cleaned their buildings and fixed their machines and served their food rose up as one. They did not fight with anger or chaos. They moved with precision, following plans that had been refined over 5 years. Guards were surrounded and captured before they could call for help. Communication systems were disabled by workers who knew exactly which wires to cut. On Earth, council surveillance showed scenes of panic and confusion. Humans running through the streets, fires burning in the cities, all the signs of a desperate uprising that would soon be crushed. The council commanders smiled and ordered their troops to restore order. They did not know that the chaos was a show. They did not see the calm, methodical mobilization happening in the shadows. For 5 years, humanity had learned where every camera pointed and what every sensor could detect. They knew the blind spots better than they knew their own faces. Ships began to appear from hiding places throughout the solar system. They rose from asteroid fields where they had been built in secret. They emerged from the atmospheres of gas giants where they had waited in patient silence. They came from the dark spaces between worlds where no one ever looked. 200 vessels. Human vessels. Armed with weapons that the Council believed were impossible. Powered by engines that the Council had never seen. Crewed by officers who had trained in secret for this moment. General Harold Mitchell stepped out of his ranch house in Montana. He was no longer a tired old man. His back was straight, and his eyes burned with cold fire. Around him, officers who had pretended to be broken farmers and retired soldiers took their places. "We remember," he said. "Every name, every face, every wrong. Now we remind them." Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of a ship called the Rising Dawn. It was smaller than the vessel she had commanded before the occupation, but it carried weapons that could tear a council battleship apart. She looked at her crew, humans who had waited 5 years for this moment. "The council thought one word was a command," she said. "They were wrong. It was a reminder of who we are, of what they did, of what we promised ourselves in the darkness." She turned to face the view screen, where the first council ships were visible in the distance. "Now let's show them what happens when you forget that humans never forget." The battle for Earth's freedom was about to begin. High Chancellor Vorthan received the first reports from human space with annoyance rather than concern. Communication blackouts happened sometimes. Equipment failed. Workers made mistakes. It was nothing that required his attention. Then more reports came. Every human system was dark. Every enforcement station had gone silent. Not one signal was reaching Council command from any world where humans lived. Vorthan ordered the Calithum fleet to respond. 300 warships, the most powerful vessels in Council space, jumped toward Earth's system. Their commanders expected to find a desperate uprising. Poorly armed rebels who'd be crushed within hours. They found the human fleet waiting for them. Admiral Daniel Harper stood on the bridge of the carrier Independence, the largest ship humanity had ever built. It had been constructed piece by piece over 5 years in the heart of an asteroid that the Council never thought to search. Now it floated in the darkness, surrounded by 200 vessels that should not have existed. The Caliph commander demanded immediate surrender. His voice was calm and confident. 300 warships against 200. The math was simple. Daniel Harper did not waste words on a response. He gave a single order: fire. The weapons that Dr. Benjamin Cross and his team had developed in the tunnels beneath Chicago proved their worth in the first seconds of battle. Energy beams cut through Council shields like knives through paper. Missiles that could not be detected until impact tore into Calith hulls. Human ships moved with speed and precision that the Council had never seen. The Keleth commander died when his bridge exploded around him. He never understood what had happened. None of them did. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the wreckage of 300 Council warships drifted through Earth's system. Not a single ship escaped to warn the Council. Not a single distress signal reached Vorthan's ears. But humanity was not finished. Not nearly. Across the galaxy, simultaneous strikes hit Council infrastructure. Supply lines were cut in a dozen places. Communication hubs that connected the elder races were captured by humans who had worked in them for years. Key leaders of the occupation found themselves surrounded by the servants. They had ignored and abused. Captain Kevin Shaw led a team to the Keleth prisons. Stationed were Dr. Patricia Vance and thousands of other humans had been held. He expected to find broken people, minds shattered by years of captivity. Instead, he found an organized population ready to fight. Patricia Vance met him at the dock. She was thinner than he remembered, and her hair had gone white, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "We've been waiting," she said simply. "What do you need?" "Everything you know about Keleth biology," Kevin replied. "And everything you learned about their weaknesses while you were their guest." She smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "I've had 5 years to study them. I know exactly where they break." Christina Wells transmitted her technical data to human engineering teams across the fleet. Within days, captured Council vessels were being modified with human technology. Ships that had been built to oppress humanity were turned into weapons of liberation. The war spread across the stars. Human forces struck with speed and precision, always appearing where the Council least expected them. They targeted supply depots and shipyards, communication arrays, and command centers. They did not try to hold territory. They simply destroyed the Council's ability to fight. Hi, Chancellor Vorthan raged against the reports that flooded his desk. His allies were demanding action. His fleets were being hunted. His empire was crumbling around him. He broadcast a message on all frequencies. His words were meant to terrify humanity into submission. "Surrender now," he demanded, "or I will glass your cities. I will burn your colonies. I will wipe every human from existence. Your species will be forgotten. Your memory will be erased from history." General Harold Mitchell responded for humanity. His voice was calm and cold, without anger or fear. "You had 5 years to destroy us," he said. "You controlled our worlds, our ships, our people. You had every advantage. And you failed. You failed because you never understood us. You thought we would break. You thought we would forget. You were wrong." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was harder than steel. "Now it's our turn. And we remember everything." The Council began to fracture. Species that had followed the Keleth out of fear or greed saw which way the wind was blowing. Some tried to make peace with humanity. Others turned on their former allies, settling old scores while the galaxy burned. Lisa Morgan led the assault on the Keleth homeworld. Her fleet surrounded the planet where Vorthan had planned humanity's destruction. She did not bomb their cities or slaughter their people. She simply waited while her ships blocked all traffic in and out. "You wanted us to be broken," she announced to the population below. "You wanted us to be slaves. We could do the same to you. We have the power. We have the right. But we are not you. We remember what you did, and we choose to be better." The Keleth government surrendered 3 days later. Vorthan was captured trying to flee in a private shuttle. Lisa personally led the team that boarded his vessel and placed him in restraints. He looked at her with hatred in his yellow eyes. "You will never hold what you have taken," he spat. "The galaxy will rise against you. You are nothing but animals." Lisa leaned close to him. "We are animals," she agreed. "Animals that remember. Animals that learn. Animals that never stop fighting for our own. You should have killed us all when you had the chance. That was your only mistake." She straightened and turned away. "Take him to the brig. He has a trial to attend." The war was not over, but humanity had proven something that the elder races had never believed possible. They had proven that they could not be broken. They could not be contained. They could not be forgotten, and they were just getting started. The war lasted 3 years. It was longer than humanity had hoped, but shorter than the Council had feared. One by one, the species that had betrayed Earth faced a choice: surrender and accept human terms, or fight and lose everything. Most chose surrender. The destruction of the Calithome fleet had shown them what human technology could do. The capture of Orthan had shown them that no leader was safe. The steady, relentless advance of human forces had shown them that this was not a war they could win. Those who fought learned harsh lessons. Human commanders did not seek revenge, but they did not show mercy to those who continued killing. Every attack on human civilians was answered with swift and overwhelming force. Every broken promise brought consequences that the guilty would never forget. Admiral Daniel Harper led the campaign with cold determination. He did not enjoy the fighting. He took no pleasure in victory. Each battle was simply a necessary step toward the future he had dreamed of during the long years of occupation. The terms humanity offered were surprisingly fair. End the occupation of human worlds. Release all prisoners. Provide payment for the damage done during the betrayal. Acknowledge humanity as an equal member of galactic civilization. No territory was demanded. No species was enslaved. No grudges were permitted to become policy. Some humans called for harsher measures. They wanted revenge for the children taken from their families, for the scientists murdered in prison camps, for the years of suffering and humiliation. Daniel understood their anger. He shared it, but he refused to let it guide him. "We remember what they did," he said in a speech to his fleet. "We will always remember. But if we become like them, if we build our future on cruelty and domination, then they win. They prove that power is the only thing that matters. We must prove them wrong. We must show the galaxy that there is another way." Chancellor of Orthan was tried before a tribunal that included representatives from 12 species. Many of them had suffered under Kelith rule long before humanity arrived on the galactic stage. They listened as witnesses described the occupation, the families torn apart, the prisoners tortured, the lives destroyed. Vorthan showed no regret. He argued that everything he had done was necessary for galactic stability. Humanity was dangerous, he insisted. Their rapid advancement threatened the natural order. The Council had acted to protect civilization itself. The tribunal found him guilty on every charge. His sentence was not death. Humanity had decided that killing him would make him a symbol for those who might want to follow his path. Instead, he was condemned to live, to watch as everything he had built was dismantled, to see the galaxy reshape itself around principles he despised. He was placed on a small station orbiting a dying star, with access to news from across the galaxy. He would spend his remaining years watching humanity rise and the Kelith dominion fade into history. It was a cruelty of a different kind, and some said it was worse than any execution. On the 10th anniversary of the betrayal, a new galactic assembly convened. Delegates from 100 worlds gathered on a station that had been built specifically for this purpose. It orbited Earth, a symbol of humanity's new position in the cosmos. Humanity was no longer a junior member to be pushed aside and ignored. They were the founders of a new order, the architects of a system built on cooperation rather than domination. Their technology and their determination had won the war. Their wisdom and restraint would shape the peace. Admiral Daniel Harper served as Earth's ambassador to the assembly. He had not wanted the position. He was a soldier, not a politician. But the people of Earth had asked him to represent them, and he could not refuse. He stood before the gathered delegates to give the opening address. The chamber was vast and circular, designed so that every species could see every other. Beings of every shape and color watched him with eyes and sensors and organs that humans had no names for. Daniel thought about the journey that had brought him here. The betrayal, the occupation, the one word that had begun humanity's uprising, the 3 years of war that followed, the millions who had died and the billions who had survived. 10 years ago, he began, the Galactic Council decided that humanity was a threat. They accused us of crimes we did not commit. They stripped us of our ships and our freedom. They scattered our people across the stars and tried to break our spirit. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces that had once belonged to enemies. They thought one word was a command. When I stood before a camera in a dark bunker and said, "Remember," they believed I was ordering an attack. They were wrong. It was not a command. It was a reminder. His voice grew stronger, filling the chamber. A reminder of every promise broken, every trust betrayed, every friend lost, but also a reminder of who we are, of what we can endure, of what we can become when we stand together. He looked at Lisa Morgan, who sat among the Earth delegation, at Kevin Shaw and Christina Wells and Patricia Vance and all the others who had kept faith through the darkness, at Dr. Benjamin Cross, who had turned impossible ideas into world-changing reality. "We remember everything," Daniel continued, "the good and the bad, the kindness and the cruelty, the allies who stood with us and the enemies who tried to destroy us. We do not forget." He spread his hands, a gesture that somehow encompassed the entire chamber and everyone in it. "But we choose what to do with our memories. We choose to build something better. Not because we have forgotten what was done to us, but because we remember, and we refuse to become what we fought against." The chamber was silent. Daniel could feel the weight of attention from 100 worlds, 100 species, 100 different ways of seeing the universe. "Humanity offers the galaxy a new beginning," he said, "based on respect instead of fear, cooperation instead of domination, growth instead of stagnation. We remember the past, but we live for the future." He stepped back from the podium. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly the delegates began to rise. Not in fear, but in respect. Not in submission, but in acknowledgement of what humanity had shown them was possible. The Galactic Council had betrayed humanity. They had given one word as command. And with that word, they had changed the galaxy forever. This was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of a new chapter, written by a species that never stopped remembering and never stopped hoping for something better.